Hello, wonderful people, and a huge welcome to today's video. It's truly a pleasure to have you here. Before we embark on our virtual journey, I want to take a moment to send my sincerest well wishes your way. To you and all your loved ones, wherever you are in the world, I genuinely hope you are feeling strong, healthy, and happy today. Now, let's explore a place that is small in size, but immeasurably vast in its global influence and spiritual significance. Nestled entirely within the bustling heart of Rome, Italy, exists a sovereign independent state unlike any other on Earth. This is Vatican City, officially known as the State of the Vatican City. It holds the distinct and undeniable title of being the smallest country in the world by every conceivable measure: land area, population, and everything in between. Its total land area is a mere 0.17 square miles, or 0.44 square kilometers. To put that into a perspective that is easy to visualize, imagine a place that is about 1/8 the size of New York City's Central Park. You can easily walk from one end of the country to the other in less than an hour, and a brisk stroll around its entire border would take you maybe another 40 minutes. It is a landlocked enclave, completely surrounded by the city of Rome, with its borders defined by high stone walls and, in one section, by the imposing colonnade of St. Peter's Square. Despite its incredibly tiny physical footprint, Vatican City stands as a colossal giant on the world stage. It is the spiritual and administrative center for over 1.2 billion Roman Catholics worldwide, and it is the residence of the Pope, who is the leader of the Catholic Church. This unique combination of minimal physical space and maximum global impact creates a fascinating paradox. It is not just a country. It is also the headquarters of a major world religion, a living museum of unimaginable artistic and cultural treasure, and a testament to 2,000 years of history, faith, and politics. The story of how this tiny city-state came to be is a long and tumultuous one, intertwined with the history of Italy itself. For over 1,000 years, the popes ruled over a large portion of the Italian peninsula, known as the Papal States. This temporal power, however, came to a dramatic end in 1870 when the army of the Kingdom of Italy captured the city of Rome, effectively ending the Papal States and leaving the Pope's territory reduced to the Vatican Palace and the surrounding area. The Pope became a self-proclaimed prisoner in the Vatican, and a bitter dispute between the Church and the Italian government, known as the Roman Question, lasted for nearly 60 years. This standoff was finally resolved on February 11, 1929, with the signing of the Lateran Treaty. This treaty was signed by Cardinal Pietro Gasparri for Pope Pius XI and by Prime Minister Benito Mussolini for King Victor Emmanuel III of Italy. The Lateran Treaty recognized the full and independent sovereignty of the Holy See over the newly created state of the Vatican City. It established the Catholic Church as the state religion of Italy at the time, and it provided financial compensation for the loss of the Papal States. This momentous agreement effectively created the modern Vatican City state as we know it today, guaranteeing it a permanent and independent home and securing the Pope's role as both a spiritual and a temporal sovereign. The government of Vatican City is as unique as the country itself. It is an absolute elective monarchy, but not in the traditional hereditary sense. The head of state is the Pope, who holds full legislative, executive, and judicial power. However, the Pope is not born into this role. He is elected. Upon the death or resignation of a pope, the College of Cardinals, which is comprised of high-ranking church officials appointed by previous popes, gathers in a secret meeting called a conclave, held in the Sistine Chapel. The word conclave comes from the Latin meaning with a key, signifying that the cardinals are locked in until they elect a new pope. This process is steeped in ritual and tradition. The cardinals vote in a series of ballots, and when one candidate receives a two-thirds majority, white smoke billows from a specially installed chimney on the chapel roof to signal to the world that a new pope has been chosen. The pope's authority is absolute, but he delegates the daily civil governance and administration of the tiny state to a body called the Pontifical Commission for the Vatican City-State, which is led by a president, who effectively acts as a mayor and prime minister combined. Despite its size, the city-state functions with all the apparatus of a full country. It has its own legal system, its own police force known as the Gendarmerie Corps, its own postal service that is famously efficient and has its own stamps, a pharmacy, a supermarket, a printing press, a radio station, and even its own railway station, complete with a short stretch of track that connects to the Italian network, though it is primarily used for freight. It also mints its own euros, which are highly sought after by coin collectors. The Vatican has its own official website, its own license plates that start with the letters SCV, and it issues its own passports. The Swiss Guard is perhaps the most visually striking symbol of the Vatican's sovereignty. This small force of about 130 soldiers is responsible for the personal security of the Pope. Founded in 1506, they are one of the oldest military units in continuous operation in the world. Recruited from young Catholic Swiss men, they are famous for their colorful Renaissance-style uniforms, which tradition says were designed by Michelangelo himself, though historians believe this is a myth. Their uniform consists of blue, red, orange, and yellow stripes with a distinctly Renaissance feel, a breastplate, and a beret or a morion helmet. While their appearance is ceremonial, they are highly trained modern security professionals, experts in hand-to-hand combat and small arms, dedicated to protecting the pontiff with their lives. The economic engine of Vatican City is as unusual as its government. It does not fit the model of a typical country. There is no agriculture, no industry, and no natural resources to speak of within its walls. Instead, its finances are supported by a variety of unique sources. A significant portion of revenue comes from contributions made by Catholic dioceses and individual faithful from around the world through an annual collection known as Peter's Pence. Other sources of income include the sale of postage stamps, coins, medals, and tourist souvenirs like guidebooks and museum tickets. The Vatican also generates revenue from fees for admission to its world-class museums and from publications. It has its own bank, officially called the Institute for the Works of Religion, which manages assets held in accounts for religious orders, dioceses, and Catholic institutions around the world. The budget of the Vatican is relatively small compared to nations, and its financial operations are often scrutinized and have been the subject of reform efforts to ensure transparency and international financial compliance. The workforce within the walls is also unique. With a citizenry of only around 800 people, most of whom are clergy, diplomats, and members of the Swiss Guard, the country relies on a daily influx of around 3,000 civilian employees from Italy. These commuters are the engine of the state. They work as museum staff, gardeners, cleaners, maintenance workers, janitors, restorers, and in administrative roles. This creates the interesting daily dynamic of a large workforce entering the world's smallest country every morning and leaving every evening. The official languages of the state are Italian and Latin, with Latin being used for official documents of the Holy See. The currency is the euro, even though it is not a member of the European Union, thanks to special agreements with Italy. But to think of Vatican City merely as a bureaucratic state is to miss its true essence. For millions of visitors and pilgrims each year, it is primarily a place of profound spiritual resonance and an unparalleled artistic and cultural destination. The heart of the Vatican, both physically and symbolically, is St. Peter's Basilica. This is not just any church. It is one of the holiest Catholic sites in the world and is believed to be built upon the burial place of St. Peter, one of Jesus' 12 apostles and considered the first pope. The current basilica, a masterpiece of Renaissance and Baroque architecture, took over 120 years to build and involved the greatest artistic geniuses of the age, including Bramante, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Bernini. Its immense scale is humbling. The dome, designed by Michelangelo, dominates the Roman skyline. Inside, the sheer grandeur is overwhelming. There is Michelangelo's heartbreakingly beautiful Pietà, a marble sculpture of the Virgin Mary holding the body of Jesus, carved when the artist was only in his 20s. There is Bernini's magnificent bronze baldachin, a colossal canopy over the papal altar, which itself sits directly over St. Peter's tomb. The basilica is a place of both awe-inspiring celebration and quiet prayer. Just outside the basilica is St. Peter's Square, another work of genius by Gian Lorenzo Bernini. The square is embraced by two vast colonnades, each consisting of 4 rows of Doric columns, designed to represent the motherly arms of the church welcoming the faithful. At the center stands an ancient Egyptian obelisk, brought to Rome by the Emperor Caligula. On Sundays, the Pope often appears from his apartment window to address the crowds gathered in the square for the Angelus Prayer, a weekly event that draws thousands. Adjacent to the square are the Vatican Palaces, which house the Vatican Museums. This is arguably the most incredible museum complex on the planet, a labyrinth of galleries, chapels, and rooms that display the immense art collection accumulated by the popes over centuries. A walk through the museums is a journey through the history of Western art. You can see ancient Greek and Roman sculptures like the Laocoon and the Apollo Belvedere, which were rediscovered during the Renaissance and had a huge influence on artists like Michelangelo. You can walk through the Raphael rooms, a suite of reception rooms frescoed by Raphael and his students, including the famous School of Athens, a painting that depicts all the great philosophers of antiquity gathered together. And finally, at the end of the museum route, you enter the Sistine Chapel. This is the Pope's personal chapel and the site of the papal conclave. Its ceiling and altar wall are entirely covered in frescoes by Michelangelo. The ceiling tells the story of Genesis, from the creation to the fall of man and the Great Flood. The central panel, the creation of Adam, where the fingers of God and Adam nearly touch, is one of the most iconic images in all of human history. Behind the altar is the breathtaking and terrifying Last Judgment, a powerful depiction of Christ's second coming painted by Michelangelo decades later. To stand in this room and look up is an experience that leaves visitors speechless, a powerful fusion of artistic genius and deep religious faith. Life within the walls of Vatican City is a unique blend of the sacred and the ordinary. For the small community of residents, which includes cardinals, priests, nuns, the Swiss Guard, and a few lay officials and their families, it is a quiet, almost village-like existence, albeit one surrounded by some of the world's greatest art. There is a sense of community and shared purpose. They have access to their own supermarket, which sells goods at a tax-free price, a pharmacy, a clinic, and even a gas station. Children of employees can attend Italian schools outside the walls. The rhythm of life is dictated by the liturgical calendar of the Catholic Church, with feast days, papal audiences, and religious ceremonies providing the annual structure. Security, of course, is always present but often discreet, ensuring the safety of the Pope and the priceless treasures within. The relationship between Vatican City and Italy is a model of peaceful coexistence and cooperation. The Lateran Treaty defined this relationship clearly. Italy provides certain services and protects the Vatican's airspace. The Vatican, in turn, remains neutral in international political disputes, and acts as a moral voice on the global stage. It holds permanent observer status at the United Nations and maintains diplomatic relations with over 180 countries, allowing it to engage in global diplomacy and advocacy on issues like peace, poverty, and human rights. In the end, Vatican City is a place of beautiful contradictions. It is the smallest country, but its voice echoes across the globe. It is a state governed by ancient traditions, yet it engages with modern global issues. It houses immense material wealth in its art, yet its central message is one of spiritual poverty and humility. It is a sovereign nation, but its ultimate purpose is not political or economic power. Its purpose is to serve as the central home for a faith that encompasses the entire world. It stands as a powerful reminder that influence cannot always be measured in square miles or economic output, but in the power of ideas, faith, history, and culture. It is truly a small city with a very, very large soul. Thank you for joining me on this tour. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next video.